this video, I'm going to show you how you can import Photoshop files into Premiere Pro. So as we can see here, I'm inside Adobe Photoshop and I put together this lower third. So I have some text layers, some shapes, and I want to import and use this inside Premiere Pro. The first step is to save it. So just make sure you save your Photoshop file and that's locally accessible on your computer. Next, inside Premiere Pro, you'll want to go to File Import at the top menu. Then navigate to your lower third template. So in this case, I'm going to select this one right here. Now, when you click import, you have a few different options. So there's 4 different options you can choose from. You can choose to merge all the layers together. You can select merge layers, which allows you to select which layers you want to merge together. So for example, maybe we don't want the title and rectangle number 2 included into our lower third. We just want the name rectangle and text. We can select just those and unselect those. For example, if we click OK, and we click and drag this in, you'll see that we only have the name section. And then merge all layers, the first option here just merges all the layers together. So it includes all the layers that came with the original Photoshop file. Now the downside with the first 2 options here is that you can't edit the individual layers separately. So if we take a look at the other options, you have individual layers from the menu. So if you click individual layers, it'll import these as individual layers inside Premiere Pro. And once again, you can choose which ones to include. So if you don't want one of these layers, you can choose which ones to not have in your file and click OK. You can see what happens here as it creates a new bin inside the project panel. If we twirl down, you can see that we have the individual layers here. And if we double click on one, you can see that we're loading them up in the source monitor and that each one is separate. If you want to add these to your sequence, you can just select all of them and then click and drag into your sequence. You'll just have to put the correct layers on top of each other, which can be a little tedious, but at least you have all the different layers of the Photoshop file. Now, if you want to make edits to the layers inside Premiere Pro, I do recommend choosing the last setting, which creates a sequence for you. So from the option here, we can select sequence, and this will create a sequence with all the layers inside the Photoshop document. So if we click OK, once again, it creates a bin. And if we twirl down, we can see all the layers imported, and then it also creates a sequence. Now, if we double click on this, you can see that we have all the layers stacked on top of each other, and we can easily, click and drag, copy these and copy them into our other sequence here if we wanted to copy the individual layers over. In addition, you can just simply click and drag this sequence out over your other sequence here to add the lower third, and you can always click and double click into this nested sequence to make fine-tune adjustments to the different layers inside this sequence here. So for example, if you wanted to animate these, each layer you can animate separately. If you go into effects controls, you have the option to change the different parameters. So you can see I'm adjusting this bar here, I'm adjusting this bar here. So you have the ability to make adjustments to the different layers. You can keyframe. This isn't an animation tutorial, but this is the way if you want to make animations and adjust each layer separately, that's how you can import Photoshop files with the different layers. Now, if we go back into our import options, you notice this option at the very bottom where you can choose footage dimensions. By default, it's set to document size, but you can change it to layer size. Now, most of the time, you'll probably want to choose document size, but just to show you what this does, if you click layer size and click OK, this will add, once again, all the layers into your project here, but it adds them already sized to the layers themselves. So if we double click on each one, you can see that each layer is sized to the way it is. It's not put into the size of the canvas that was created inside Adobe Photoshop. And if we go into the lower third sequence that it created, you can see everything's just on top of each other, everything's centered, and it's just the individual elements based on their original size inside the Photoshop file. So it's not based on the canvas size. And this is good. I mean, if you want everything centered and you really want to play around with all the different layers, but in most cases, I like choosing the other option. So you might be wondering, okay, now that you have it inside Premiere Pro, how do you change the text if you want to update the text? So to do that, it's pretty easy inside Premiere Pro. Let's say we have this imported sequence here. We can double click on it, and to make adjustments to any one of these, we can click on the name here, right click, and you have 2 different options. Both do the same thing. You can go to edit original or edit in Adobe Photoshop. Once you click this, it'll reopen Photoshop, and then you can make changes to the name and your different text graphics here. So let's say if I change it to John, I can click the check mark at the top and then just go to File, Save. And then once it's saved, once you go back inside Premiere Pro, it will automatically update. This is called Dynamic Link, where all the different Adobe products talk to each other. So the connection between Premiere Pro and Photoshop enable you to make adjustments to the Photoshop file while also seeing the real-time effects inside Premiere Pro. You can also do the same using After Effects, using linked compositions. And if you want to see how that works, I will link a tutorial where I go over that right up there. Feel free to go watch that tutorial. But I hope this video was helpful if you wanted to see how to import and use Photoshop files inside Premiere Pro. That does it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.